So I wanted to answer back to a comment real quick on the channel. I'm here at the laundromat doing laundry before I go home, and it's easier for me to wash all my nasty work stuff here at the laundromat than take it home and put it in a nice washer and dryer. And I don't mean my uniforms. We have a service for that. I mean my other clothes that I use at work, sometimes like these shirts that are not uniforms that we have to wash ourselves. Anyway, somebody said they took their vehicle to the dealership and they had their rear differential changed out or something, and while they were there they noticed the brakes were pretty low, and the question was, do the dealers actually cut rotors or anything anymore, and why is it always just a pad and rotor replacement? Some dealers still do have that old school ability to cut rotors. We will cut rotors. There's a benefit to the tech and a benefit to the customer. If the rotor is still in spec and can be cut to safe minimums and still leave enough of that meat there for heat to dissipate properly and contact surface and all this other stuff, so you can at least get another drive cycle out of it or two, we'll give the customer the option. It's either a half-hour labor more, so instead of 1.5 hours to clean, adjust, remove old pads, put rotors and brake pads on, do you want us to just charge you the $70 for the pads and then 2 hours labor, save yourself maybe $100-$150 and we'll cut the rotors? Or do you want us to just put brand new rotors and pads on there? Sometimes we can give the customers the option. Most of the time the customers themselves will choose to do pads and rotors if it's kind of getting close. After they've been cut once or twice, they're like, you know what, just put new ones on. Other times they're like, you know, if you can cut them, cut them. If you feel like they're still safe, I'm fine with paying an extra half-hour labor to cut them, and you guys might make more labor in the shop, and it saves me money in parts. And we're more than willing to do that because I make an extra half hour. I'm okay with that, and I enjoy cutting rotors. I add a little bit of a spin to the end of them. When I'm done cutting rotors, I'll back the bits away from the machine, and I'll use a pretty heavy grit on my angle grinder, and I'll actually drag the angle grinder out as it's spinning, and I'll put a kind of aggressive texture on it. And what helps is it helps bed the pads in better, and it stops that squeaking. A lot of dealers and independent shops, I speak more for dealers, I guess, than anything, have gotten a bad rep with cutting rotors, not knowing how to put that right finish on it, and then the customer getting a brake job done, and then it making noise after that. So a lot of dealers have said, you know what, we don't want the customer complaints no more. We want the customer to be happy. So what we're going to do is no more cutting rotors. We're just going to new pads and rotors when they need to be done. You know, it's an extra $100 or so for the customer in the long run, but at the same time, they're not complaining about that sound. Well, a lot of us that have been in the field for a while know how to finish that rotor the proper way to not have that sound. A lot of guys won't do that at the end to finish it like that. And some guys are like, look, I'd rather make the half hour and put a nice finish on it to help bed the pads in properly and eliminate that sound. A lot of guys on here, when I've put videos up in the past showing how I do that, the majority of technicians on here are like, you know what, I do that, and it cuts that sound down tremendously, and the customer doesn't complain, and it really helps bed the pads in properly, or burnish the pads in right. Other techs have said, look, my dealer has got away from that. They would rather just throw rotors and pads on it to even eliminate any kind of possibility of sound after a customer has a brake job done. So that's the answer to why you would do rotors and pads versus cutting the rotors. I hope this explains some things.